Hello, everyone. My name is Godson Quay, currently working with Green Tech Capital Partners and also Green Tech Capital Africa Foundation. It's exciting to be talking about one of the topics that I'm really passionate about on the EU mAkE program, which is venture building. And what we've come out with as the Venture Building Handbook, the core deliverable of the venture building work stream under mAkE program. Throughout this presentation, we're going to hit on, a number of things. One of which is really understanding why startups fail, which forms the premise for our developing, the concept of venture building when it comes to African startups. And then also, talk a bit more about the handbook, which is the core deliverable and the essence of this presentation, highlighting a few of the elements, and then also talk about, wrap up with ending, looking at the way ahead when it comes to venture building on the EU mAkE program. So why do startups fail? If you look at the statistics that Brighter Bridges shares, we see that over the past 5 to 6 years, funding seems to have almost tripled, for African, startups. And this is really looking at the quantum of funding deals. And we realize that, it's mostly spread between early and growth stage, startups. However, you realize that from this chart, there's been a slight reduction in the growth stage funding deals. And that really brings to mind one of the biggest problems or phenomena that, it keeps getting called out when it comes to startups, which is the fact that 75% of venture-backed startups do not succeed, mainly because they don't return cash to their investors. In fact, 30 to 40% of those end up, liquidating their assets, and investors don't get anything back at the end of the day. As has been studied by several by Gosh and Ingio of Harvard Business School. Now, looking at the reasons, we realize that if you look at this chart from CBS, the CB Insights, the biggest chunk of the reasons are internal factors. And it's a function of it ranges from not understanding the market need to even launching the product wrong or not having the right team in place. Some of the very, very seemingly simple issues seem to get unnoticed until very late, which is why some of these startups end up failing. And so the question really on our minds from a green tech perspective has always been, how can this be tackled? And that's where the whole concept of entrepreneurial support comes in. And we looked at, the number of the types of entrepreneurial support, structures and systems out there for African, startups. And we realized that out of the many forms, there are like 3 main forms at the time, where, ranging from capacity building, management consultancy, and venture studios. And we figured that most of these other forms tend to be out of reach for these African startups, mainly because of funding, also because of the fact that some of these forms do not really speak specifically to the need of the business. And so then we came up with the whole concept of venture building, which is where we're saying, look, it's beyond providing capital or helping these businesses to access capital. But then really going back to the insights we shared earlier, that the issues go beyond finding funding to understanding the basics of setting up a business that can scale or support itself. So with Green Tech, we actually provide, what we call purposeful, venture building, where we go beyond funding to actually providing operational support, mentorship, and resources as much as needed. The whole purpose is to create a mindset shift, and help to co-create a system that enables all the elements of the business to work, in a more synergistic way. So and it's tied up by this definition of venture building by Decipher, which says that venture building is in the activity of purposefully and methodically creating a new business initiative. And we're emphasizing here on being purposeful and also being methodic in the approach. Now, if you look at the Venture Building Handbook, a lot of these are explained in much more detail for the reader. What's the real advantage for venture building? We realize that, even from a venture studio perspective, and that's the closest comparison to venture building, 44%, there's a high 44% jump in the likeliness of businesses that are supported in such environments to actually reach Series A. So the advantages are really huge. That there's a higher survival rate. There tends to be a faster, market entry and exit as much as possible because, I mean, these firms have a body of knowledge and, have more experience, access to more experience and dedicated resources. And then there's better capital efficiency for investors, which is one of the biggest, needs of a startup. The pillars of venture building, are quite broad, and we explain all these in the handbook. But it ranges from actual brainstorming ideation of the problem at hand and the business model to thinking about things like risk and equity, and really having the long-term orientation that businesses should have, right from even conception. At the end of the day, the vision or the objective of venture building is to ensure that these businesses are profitable. And that's all these are actually encapsulated in the venture building handbook. And it's what we call, literally the toolkit, not just for venture owners and, founders and managers, but also to look at it from a venture builder perspective. So if ideally, once I pick up this content, as a venture owner, there's a lot in it for me, but then there's also a lot in it for me as a venture builder, because it doesn't just provide specific guidelines, but also provides an overview of what should be looked at. Now, what we would say here is that, and the important thing about the handbook is that it's not supposed to be the be all or end all, but it's actually supposed to be one of the reference materials or pivotal reference materials for these stakeholders, as we have grouped them. Core elements of the handbook, therefore, are, as providing frameworks, that kind of provide clarity on some of the scientific approaches that have been taken to venture building or, business strategy in the past that have been proven, to work from all corners of the globe today, to providing processes and procedures that startups can actually refer to or look at, which can save them time, brainstorming time, or even team time to enable them focus on the most important things, which is actually acting out some of these recommendations. And then there are references that are provided. So we look at both online resources, learning modules online, as well as books that can be referred to along the journey. A few frameworks that we try to handle in the venture building handbook are the business model canvas, blue ocean strategy, and things like the SWOT analysis. And the perspectives that we add here are really to help challenge, startups on what else can be looked at within these, because we know these models and a lot of people understand these models, but when it comes to applying them, there's a bit of a gap, because they're probably not looking specifically enough, or being inclusive enough of the whole team in terms of the diversity of views. And we walk along what it takes to brainstorm and generate ideas, up to even team development, to ensure that all capabilities in the team are efficiently and effectively used. We talk about processes and procedures as well, things like, how to arrive at the right, decisions in the business, who makes the decisions, who owns decisions, who carries out decisions, and who contributes to decisions at any point in time in a venture. how to develop, an MVP for a business. And this is really borrowing a lot from our involvement with startups across, Africa and across various, sectors, be it tech, be it agriculture or education, or other areas of endeavor and entrepreneurship. We talk about things like how to, segment the market in the handbook, and really try to provide as much of a framework as possible, as much of the details into what should be looked at or followed in terms of processes and procedures. And startups, our advice is that startups take this with a view of being able to tweak and customize to their satisfaction and to their current business need. Then there's a lot of references for these frameworks and material that we provide for ventures, including like books and online articles, to even networking opportunities, particularly on the EU mAkE program, because then we take this a step further to say, beyond referring to this handbook, these are the kind of resources that we can provide to these startups to help them realize the goals, for which they're on the venture building program. Currently, we have about 20 startups on the program, and each of these are being taken through specific legs of problem solving, ideation, actual value creation based on the stage of development they find themselves and their stated need on the venture building program. And the objective is to ensure that by the time we're done, we are positioning, as many of these startups for, proper fundraising within the program and also outside the program, and getting them ready also to be able to scale their businesses in the most sustainable ways possible. Um, and we're hoping that this material would be of the most use, not just within the EU mAkE program, but also beyond it, and that these startups can get the most value outside this program and beyond. It's been a pleasure presenting this to you, and thank you very much.